Right. This is Shakespeare's Whisky Files. This month, I've selected 3 whiskies for us. We've got the Arran Cask Strength 12-year-old, which is one of the newer distilleries in Scotland. We've also got a Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or, aged in Sauternes wine classes, casks even, 15 years old, from one of Scotland's older distilleries and one of the more famous names. And then Ardbeg Ardbeg, which is a special edition for the Fez Eel 2013 Whisky Festival on Islay. This is a one-off bottling. Yeah. This first one here is the Arran 12-year-old cask strength, which comes from the southern Scottish island of Arran, which didn't have a distillery until 1995 when this one was set up. So, from the nose you can get a sort of quite a fruity smell of, on the website they say peach and nectarines, with a hint of apricot, which is very trademark Mariners. It's aged in sherry casks, or finished in sherry casks. You get that fruitiness. That obviously sherry is made from grapes, and so you get that coming through. You also get such a slice from the cask, from the wood of the cask, that gives a sort of spiciness. And the taste is again quite fruity, quite a lingering taste, and quite, again quite a bit of spice, sort of nutmeg and orange zest in the finish. It's bottled at 54.1%, so it's cask strength, a bit above average. So again, if you wanted to add a couple of drops of water just to bring out the full flavour, then some people say that gives you a more rounded appreciation of it, but it's a sort of personal preference thing really. And Arran is independently owned as well. So, yes. Moving on to the next one is the Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or, which means gold in Gaelic. This one is finished in Sauternes French wine, because I think it's a white wine. It's quite unusual. It's an incredibly complex whisky. Nowadays it's bottled after 12 years, but this is the older version that they bottled up until earlier this year at 15. Quite a generous pour for this tummy check. So you can smell that it's quite a dry aroma. Fruity, but different sorts of fruit. You've kind of got a bit more lime and sultanas in there. And quite spicy, almost a sort of coconut smell. Then, to taste it. Very smooth whiskey. Quite dry and bitter to start with, but then a developing sweetness. It's getting sort of nutty flavour almost, sort of almondy, but also quite honeyed. Very tasty whiskey. So yeah, Glenmorangie was founded in 1843. So there was a glut of distilleries founded in the early 19th century when distilling was made legal. But by the mid-1800s, quite a few other distilleries have been made to say. Obviously, one of the most famous is a Highland distillery, just north of the Speyside production areas where most distilleries are centred, right on the coast in Rothshire, in Tain, and 12 men of Tain are on the Glenmorangie committee and are responsible for quality. And the 10-year-old is the most famous, but this is, as I say, a rarer and more interesting bottle.
Who were the 12 men of it?
It's a committee. I don't really know the backstory, but it's just a kind of, they're not the owners, but it's a kind of sort of select tasting committee. So last up is Ardbeg from the Ardbeg distillery, which actually since 1996 has been owned by Glenmorangie. This one, rather than being finished, well, rather than the sort of mainland style, this is a very peaty one. Islay's well renowned for their really peaty whiskies. Ardbeg actually is also finished in Manzanilla sherry casks though, which gives a fruitiness as well and a sweetness to it, as well as the massive smoky sort of barbecue flavours that you get from peated whiskey. It's a very limited edition. It's made especially for the Islay Festival of Whiskey, and it's a whiskey that has its own day. The 1st of June this year was Ardbeg Day. Yeah, so you kind of, on the aroma, very salty, a bit of brine, a bit of fruit as well from the cask, but also that sort of very peaty, smoky smell. And then a massive peaty kick when you drink it. Quite dry, very dry actually on the tongue. But a lot of flavours are sort of herbal, so there's quite a sort of maple sweetness balancing it. Really complex. Ardbeg are often regarded as being the producers of the most complex whiskies in Scotland, and very, very highly rated by people like Jim Murray, who writes the Whisky Bible every year. It was founded apparently in 1815, which is actually before distilling was legal in Scotland, so a little controversial. Then apparently it's been distilling since at least 1798, but Islay being quite a remote island, quite difficult to get to, I suppose maybe the customs officers didn't make it out that far. It's been owned by a few big companies. It was owned by Highland Distillers, I think this is the biggest whiskey company now owned, who are now owned by Diageo, but it was closed down in the late 80s and restarted production very limited in the early 90s until Glenmorangie bought it, and now they've developed this reputation as being a really, really good distillery. This one is bottled at 52.1%, so another cask strength one. A touch of water perhaps advisable. Going back to the Arran one, the Glenmorangie, sorry, that's 46%, the standard non-chill filtered strength. And should anyone wish to come and sample them themselves, the Arran retails at £3.80 for a single measure. The Glenmorangie also £3.80, and the Ardbeg a little more expensive. It's £5.50, but then it's a once in a lifetime experience. So once it's gone, there won't be any more bottles of this. So there you go.